Bidisha Chakraborty. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Just a second. Can you just give me a second? I'll just sort out everything. Just 1 second.
Okay. So, where are you based, Susan?
Yes, a very good evening, everyone. So I'm Bidisha Chakraborty, and thank you so much for the platform. I'm from India, and I currently work at Council for School Certificate Examination, and I'm really grateful to International Psychohistorical Association for giving me the opportunity to present my paper on. I have changed the title a bit. The Plastic Classroom, Leveraging Neuroplasticity as a Pedagogical Tool for Cognitive Resilience and Mental Well-Being. I updated it, but somehow it did not got updated in my, I think, in the flyer. Anyway, not a big deal. The research idea is exactly the same. That's all. I have just a bit updated it. That's all. So without further ado, I'll just read out the paper. So the title is The Plastic Classroom, Leveraging Neuroplasticity as a Pedagogical Tool for Cognitive Resilience and Mental Wellness. Uh, the way I have written the paper, it actually targets the Indian curriculum system. So keeping it as a structure, I have written my paper that how I can or how we educators can implement neuroplasticity into the curriculum and fetch out the maximum benefits from the learners. So with all of your permission, I'm start reading the paper. The academic lexicon and its transgressive adaptability to new pedagogical requisites are experimental to provide and secure maximum productivity of teaching and reach out the content to learners effortlessly. Reinvestigating and re-researching better pedagogical tools motivates the academic industry to leverage a responsible attitude and upgraded content delivery from the instructor, as well as it restructures the curriculum framework. Mental well-being is an immediate priority, not only with respect to learners, students, but an important factor for the entire academic industry. After all, learner and instructors are complementary pairs. The paper aims to interlink academia and neuroplasticity and its outcome on classroom dynamics, that is, impact on students, including senior high school students and degree course learners. The advent of neuroplasticity becomes more prominent with the modern day struggles and academic constructivism, especially in academic industries. The academic system in India follows a strict grade structure for learners. That is, learning before practicing, experimenting less, learning more. The curriculum is rigid based on constructive learning, including multiple subject-based learning. Though introduction to critical thinking like value-based learning, high-order thinking skills has only meager contributed for developing the curriculum system, as most of the learners follow the prescriptive, suggestion-based and rote-based study pattern. For centuries, education was built on the constructivism or static assumption that intelligence and academic ability to improve was fixed by adulthood. It is necessary and high time in academia to introduce learners and instructors from various fields with the general knowledge of brain functioning. When instructors and learners understand that the brain is a muscle that physically remodels itself in response to certain reinforcements or practices, the neurons activate the learning pattern. As it is going to have an effect over learners, eventually it transforms the classroom dynamics from sorting mechanism into a growth engine. This paradigm moves beyond using neuroscience as a background philosophy for curriculum design. Instead, it leverages neuroplasticity as an explicit, transparent pedagogical mechanism. By demonstrating to students that the human brain actively reorganizes its structure, functions, and connections in response to intrinsic stimuli, Poderberg and Mary, they stated that educators can foster cognitive resilience, which is the potentiality to sustain efficient executive functioning despite acute or chronic environmental stresses. In India, school curriculum is rigid that creates a fixed mindset for subjects. Instructors use old methodology of teaching rather than researching new pedagogical tools to make certain subjects more interesting. As the learners go through multiple subject learnings, they start believing in a linear pattern of looking at a subject. Treated with fixed mindsets that creates an imposter syndromes like I quote it, just not good enough in statistics. I quote again, bad at writing or not cut out for critical theory. But neuroplasticity shifts the pedagogical perspective when educators introduce the science of neuroplasticity. It allows the learner to reframe struggle not as a lack of intellect, as the physical process of myelination or that strengthening of neural pathways. This creates a mindset balance over the learners where they treat academic setbacks as data rather than a verdict on their intelligence. It helps to normalize the cognitive friction that is usually in scuffling the difficult concepts of mathematics, literary theories, linguistics, technical grammar, etc. Now, neuroplasticity optimizes active learning by remodeling itself when triggered to solve a problem. It upgrades the passive learning. Though learning through reading or teaching via lecture method are good pedagogical tools, but they aren't victorious enough to create strong neural connections. Thus, the instructor uses neuroplastic principle to design active learning strategies that boost interest, practices like retrieval, which is quizzing yourself rather than rereading. We can use spaced repetition, which is distributing study over time, and interleaving, which is mixing different topics or skills in one study session. Though initially this methodology are a bit challenging, but it also depends on the age group of students. But since they trigger significantly higher synaptic plasticity, leading to deep long-term conceptual retention rather than short-term cramming. The brain learns best when multiple neural networks are actively simultaneously, sorry, pardon. The brain learns best when multiple neural networks are activated simultaneously. Theory and practice must go hand in hand. A student must be encouraged to emphasize the concept of learning by discussion, reading, visualization, and applying it in other core areas of learning as well. Now, metacognition is another crucial factor that allows the learner to be aware of their thinking, supports self-thinking, scrutinization, and reassess thoughts. How neuroplasticity is a theoretical foundation of well-being. The anatomy of learning heavily relies on experience-based neuroplasticity. As Goldberg stated, that learners get exposed to or encourage themselves with novel ideas, repetitive patterns of neural activation trigger Hebbian modification, reinforcing functional synaptic pathways while pruning underutilized connections. These psychological models aligns with biological capacities of human flourishing. In 2020, Dahl cultivated a well-being four-dimensional framework including awareness for attention control and meta-awareness, connection for pro-social relation qualities, insight, self-regulation, regulatory knowledge, and the deconstruction of rigid self-beliefs. And lastly, purpose, which is an alignment of action with core values. Now, each of this dimension exhibits profound neural plasticity. When interrogated in a classroom setting, as it demonstrates the psychological well-being not as fixed temperamental trait, but highly manipulative and biologically skill set as argued by Dahl. Now, my next pointer is neuroeducation as a buffer for psychological distress. Learners' exposure of the informations of neuroscience is a core pillar of the plastic classroom. That is, it's an intervention framework of neuroeducation that provides a direct instruction of neuroscience to students. When an individual learns how the brain regulates internal states like stress, fear, insecurity, then response, then kindness, their perspective to cognitive appraisals transmutes significantly. Teaching learners directly about neuroplasticity changes their relationship with their cognitive ability. It makes them curious and increases the hunger to research brain and their nervous system. Sometimes it also surprises and makes them feel awestruck to know the details of their biochemistry. Neuroed or neuro education shifts the narrative of stress as a catalyst for neurotrophic signaling and synaptic modeling. This pedagogical intervention enhances growth mindset by increasing belief that intelligence can be systematically developed. Self-efficiency that empowers students with the understanding that they have control over their neural architecture. Students create prognostic optimism that encourages them to view academic setbacks as modified phases of functional reorganization. Creating an enriched learning environment to operationalize neuroplasticity effectively, the educational environment must fulfill specific physiological, cognitive, spiritual, and emotional criteria. Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development illustrated that optimal learning occurs when a task balances a student's current abilities with appropriate instructional support. Today's modern educational neuroscience reveals a biological parallel to the zone of proximal development, where neuroplasticity is optimized with a precise window where environmental challenge meets emotional safety. It's not only a manifestation of a healthy classroom or enriched environment, they are a micro source of healthy population contributing with a long-term distress-free brain and structural resilience. Now, implementation strategies for the educators. Based on subjects, curriculums are prepared. We can rethink cross-curriculum intervention to enrich curriculum development. Like, for example, first, metacognitive literature. Incorporating primary scientific literature, reasoning directly into curriculum across discipline can be a good point. Explicitly instructing students to monitor their own understanding, tracking how their cognitive strategies adapt when encouraging complex textual data. Now, coming to systematic reappraisal rituals. Before conducting high-stake evaluations, conducting small fragmented tests that helps the brain to receive challenges systematically and boosts new neural adjustments to absorb contextual learning. Now, what is active engagement architectures? Replacing passive lecture or heavy consumption with active inquiry, sensory motor integration, and peer collaboration, as passive learning fails repetition and neural firing, but reinforcement learning like group activity, performance, or presentation based learning triggers problem solving in a healthy way. The plastic classroom is a shift in perspective, upgrading the pedagogy around neuroplasticity and viewing the learner's brain as passive vessel for information to treating it as an active, self-regulating system capable of profound structural change. By introducing neuroplasticity as a pedagogical tool, educators demystify the learning process, dismantles fixed mindsets, and provide learners with a robust cognitive defense against psychological setbacks. Framing educational space with modifiable environment allows learners and educators to communicate directly, setting one another's intellectual development and enhances emotional intelligence as well. For learners, brain health redefines the classroom dynamics as a primary setting for their lifelong mental wellness along with intellectual growth. Thank you so much.